Oh, hey! Today is really exciting because we are talking about the neuroscience of relationships and specifically expectations versus reality. And this is really, really exciting because y'all, I'm a nerd in terms of neuroscience, and a lot of you are also interested. So here we are, and I know you're a busy woman, so we're gonna get through this fast. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you're here live, or even when you're watching this on replay, let me know any questions if you want some clarifications, because what may make sense in my head may not to other people. So let me know if you have any questions, and we are just going to begin. Today I'm going to talk about expectations, what actually happens in our brains and in our nervous system when our expectations are met and when our expectations are not met. And we're going to focus on this because on when our expectations are not met, because let's get real here, our expectations are not always going to be met, right? And what to do when that happens. So I'm going to give you 3 very, very, very simple actionable tips at the end to help you regulate your nervous system whenever your expectations don't get met. And these 3 steps literally takes like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, depending on how much regulation you've been doing. So let us begin. I'm going to start off with what happens in our brains and the chemicals in our brains when our expectations are met, because that's easier, right? So when our expectations are met, we actually our brains release dopamine, and we all know dopamine. It's a wonderful, pleasurable drug, and it makes us feel good. It makes us feel good. And it's like dopamine is a neurotransmitter that is actually involved with reward. So positive reinforcement, reward. We associate when our expectations are met, there's a reward chemical, dopamine, that is circulated in our bloodstream, and we feel good. That's why positive reinforcement is a thing, right? And very, very useful thing. So that's the easy, normal part, right? How about what happens when our expectations are not met? And this is the thing. This is what we're going to work on today, because have you ever wondered why it's so disappointing when our expectations are not met? This happens to everyone, right? Because there's a chemical reaction, a neurological reaction that happens in our brains to make us feel like shit when our expectations are not met, whether that be expectations we have with regards to our partner or like goals in our business, right? And it couldn't be like really small, simple things where you expected to eat eggs today, but there's no eggs in the fridge, and that expectation is not met, and you're met with disappointment. There's a really interesting neurological change that happens when our expectations are not met. So when our expectations are not met, when there's a misalignment between expectation and what happens in reality, our brains hate it. It hates it. Why? Because it's uncertain or unknown. And when that happens, because our brains love certainty, certainty means safety, and uncertainty, or not having the expectations met, is the unknown, which could potentially mean a saber-toothed tiger around the corner, right? And so when our expectations don't get met, our brains initiate a stress response, aka a flight or flight response. Adrenaline goes up, and when that happens, our immune function drops, and our limbic brain, which is the back part of our brain, it goes into overdrive. That reptilian reactive part of our brains become more activated. It starts going into overdrive, and when the back part of our brain becomes overdriven, that's a word, then our frontal lobe, our ability, the part of our brains that are involved with making decisions and critical thinking, and the logical part of us, shuts down. And this makes a lot of sense, right? When we're like, expectations are met, we're in the heat of the moment, we do things that we wouldn't normally do. I read this book where it says, like things like, your expectations are not met, or just being in heartbreak. What do they say? Makes a killer out of a nun. And that is extremely true, because that part of our brain where the logical, like the ones that, help us with what's right or what's wrong, it gets shut down. And so because of that, our dopamine levels drop. It feels unpleasant. And also our oxytocin levels, which is our love and bonding hormones, also go down. And, this is a normal thing. This happens to everyone. And, our brains are goal-seeking mechanisms, right? Its job is to find a goal, kind of like a missile, right? You set a missile into action, like say you want the missile to go here, and then it tries to reach it, and it will do whatever it takes to reach that, and it will course correct naturally to get to this destination. But if it doesn't hit that expectation, it like freaks the fuck out, and it tries to get to that expectation. And like I said, our minds kind of like lose their footing, like when our expectations don't get met, because it's the unknown, and unknown means we might get killed by a saber-toothed tiger. It might mean that the fire-breathing dragon is going to come after us. It's a survival mechanism, more like, and it activates this part of our brain, which is not the good thing, right? It's that fight or flight response. And the reason why our brains do that is because it perceives, and this is the word, it perceives a lack of safety and or certainty. It hasn't really fully evolved to know that a stress response in our environment from, say, our partner is not a saber-toothed tiger and is nothing to worry about, because it's evolved so much over the thousands of years that actually help us still be alive now. This limbic part of our brain allowed us to survive back in our caveman days, right? And it takes time and millions, maybe thousands of years to reprogram that. So we have to make the conscious effort to reprogram it. And so what do you do? What do you do? Because like I said earlier, our expectations are not always going to be met. So I'm not going to be the person who's going to tell you to lower your expectations. No. I'm all about having high expectations for yourself, but also being able to course correct that expectation and know what to do if those expectations are not met, so you can course correct it. And so 3 things that you can do today to regulate your nervous system whenever your expectations aren't met. And I'm going to give you an example after this too, so it really solidifies in your mind. Like I said earlier, when our expectations are not met, it means that our minds feel unsafe and it feels uncertain. So really, the very, very simple fix to this is to create safety and create certainty, right? It really gets to be this simple, but not as easy. So the first thing you want to do is to create that safety within you, whatever that looks like for you. You want to be able to create a grounded presence within you for whenever you feel, quote unquote, triggered by the fight or flight response, right? So first thing is to create safety within you. And the second one is actually very much related to creating safety, and it is to make the unknown known. What does that mean? It means that you want to be able to create certainty and predictability, which really just means that you want to be mindful as to what is going on and be in the present moment, because your mind thinks that you're going to get killed right now, even though that's not true. So you want to create the present awareness and create safety so that your body feels that there is no threat. And I'm going to give you an example afterwards. And the third tip is to find a reward. Like I said, positive reinforcement is a thing, right? So when you're able to effectively create safety within you, as well as be mindful and create certainty, then you want to reward yourself for that. Why? Because reward means dopamine. Dopamine makes you feel good, and you're more likely to do it over and over again. And you're going to condition your mind and reprogram your mind to do the same thing, because that's how we learn, right? If we get positive reinforcement on something, then our brain will just automatically do that thing again because it got a reward the first time. So let me give you an example. Say you expected that the dishes were going to be done because you wanted to make dinner, say for tonight. And it's a busy day for you. You're working on your business. You've got tons of calls. You got tons of things going on. And then you go to the kitchen, it's dinner time, and say your partner is home. And then you look at the sink and it's full of fucking dishes and you're pissed off, right? That's fucking annoying because you want to make dinner and the dishes aren't done. Your husband was home the whole time. He could have just at least put it in the dishwasher, right? It's the normal thought. So there's many options here. This is where you actually want to create the safety in that moment when you feel yourself kind of tense up and go, oh, these dishes aren't done. That is the moment when you want to create safety, because that is how you're going to reprogram that old pattern from, instead of going, to that argument in your mind and just getting pissed off, just by creating safety right there. As soon as you feel that emotion, that is what is going to change the subconscious pattern. So you see the dishes and you're like, ugh, that's when you create the safety. So for me, for example, if that were to happen to me, I would look at the dishes and I'm going to be like, ugh. So first thing, create safety within me. And for me, that's through breath. That is through breath work. That is how I figured out how to regulate myself. So I do my breath work routine. It doesn't really take that long, maybe 30 seconds, maybe longer, depending on the day and the hormones and the time of the month. You know. And that's how I create safety and I create groundedness. And for me, creating certainty is also by feeling into my body, feeling into my emotions. And not many people do this. Most people are not really mindful about what their body is doing or how their body is feeling, because at that moment when your expectations aren't met, like I mentioned before, your dopamine drops and your oxytocin drops, and it does not feel good. It feels unpleasant. So as humans, we avoid anything that is unpleasant, right? So even though the first thing that we need to do is really get grounded in our body and feel our body, we actually also at the same time have this tendency to go the other way and just react, right? But the best thing you can do for yourself is really be mindful of what your body is doing. So for me, a stress response for me, if I see that this happens to my shoulder, I get tense. And so using steps 1 or 2, I'm going to take breaths. I do my breath work. And as I intentionally breathe and consciously breathe, that makes me internal already. That makes me more aware of what my body is. And as I keep doing the breath, that tension fades because I'm paying attention to the internal state and I'm mindful. And then I'm tapping into my body and pretty much telling my brain that I am alive and I am safe and that there is no threat. Makes sense, right? And so that is going to vary depending on how well you're doing this. And you want to be doing this as frequently when that trigger comes, because that's how you create the associations in your brain, right? So like I said, see the dishes, breathe, release, and then make a decision. Do I do the dishes or do I wait till later until after I make the dinner? It's up to me. So, but if I decide that I'm going to do the dishes or put the dishes in the dishwasher right there and then, I'm going to do that. I'm going to put the dishes away or wash them and then positively reinforce myself for that action. Simply just by saying, good job, Fritz, you didn't lose your shit. That is it. And doing this over and over and over is what is going to regulate your nervous system. It does take a lot of conscious effort, but I would say before, maybe a few years ago, it would take me maybe 10 minutes to calm down, but now it really may take me 30 seconds to a minute from being triggered into feeling safe and into positively reinforcing myself. So again, the 3 tips: create safety within you, be mindful, get internal into your body, feel into your body, and then positively reinforce yourself to get that dopamine back up. And then that's how you create that safety. And this practice, the reason why I really want to share this with you is because this practice is what's going to to prevent arguments from escalating, prevent blow up fights from happening. Because the reason why arguments happen is that because both parties are reacting, right? They are there's some intense emotions that are happening within them that are not really regulated, and they kind of just feed off each other, just reacting. So if you start with being the person who regulates themselves, we do this thing as humans too. We have these mirror neurons that where we mirror the person who we are with, just innately, unconsciously. And so if you are that person who is calm and regulated, the other person is also going to eventually mirror what you are doing. It's going to, by you being regulated, it regulates that other person too. So that is really at the core how you prevent arguments from escalating to blow up fights, and preventing it from happening in the future. Because instead of getting pissed off about something like the dishes, which is really not the problem, you're able to just regulate it and let it go, so that an argument doesn't happen. And isn't that more peaceful? Wouldn't that feel more fulfilling, right? And I mean, this argument thing works if the other person, if your partner is not a narcissist. That's a different story for a different day. But let me know if you have any questions with this, with the tips, with the neuroscience. Was this helpful at all? Because if not, then I won't do it again. Positively or negatively reinforce me here. I want to know what is helpful for you, what you really found interesting. And if you have any questions, if you'd like me to explain some more details about it, like I could explain the neuroscience more, but it really doesn't matter, because the basic psychology is good enough for you to create lasting transformations and impact in your lives and in your relationships. If you have any questions, if you'd like me to talk about something else, if you enjoy this, let me know. If you have any further questions, comments, concerns, wine, chocolate, I don't know, let me know. And yeah, so that is it for today. If there is any particular thing that, oh my God, what's happening here? If there's any particular thing that you want to learn, I am happy to talk about it and create more trainings for you. So that is it for today. Have a great rest of the week. See you soon.